Welcome back, everyone. It has been a long time since we got the last one. We've been pretty busy with a bunch of stuff, but welcome back to the DraftPro podcast. This is our final one of the season. I know 3 episodes, grizzled amount of episodes. We were really putting them out, pumping them out all year long. I don't think we
busy scouting.
Yes,
too busy scouting.
Too busy scouting. I think 5 months since the last video either, but just we've been busy. We've been putting in the hours. We've had no time to do that stuff. Obviously, so like we got Jared Brown with us today, and we got Mikko Saarela with us today. I'm saying it right, correctly?
Yeah.
Saarela.
Saarela, yeah.
Saarela. Okay, perfect. I remember in I think the second one, I didn't know if I said it correctly, and I didn't say anything, so I felt bad. But anyways, guys, like I said, we've been working really hard all year round on this stuff, and we've actually finally put everything into fruition. The 2022 NHL Draft Guide with DraftPro is finally out. Also, the yearbook is out if you want all the access to every single one of the game reports we've done, which is hundreds and hundreds, maybe it probably even eclipse thousands. You'll never run out of stuff to read this summer, put it that way. But in there, we got, our top 240 rankings for 2022, the top 32 for 2023, and the top 10 for 2024. That is a lot. That's a lot of words, a lot of reading. And then we got the articles such as on Logan Cooley, the top 50 prospects in the NHL, which was written by Jared, and just so much more. It's your best option for anything surrounding the 2022 draft and just hockey prospects in general, which is today the big thing we're going to be just talking about, because as of recording this, it is June 29th. We are, what is it? June is 31 days, right? Or 30?
30, yeah. We're about almost a week away, right? Because it's on a Thursday.
We're 7-8 days away right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going over today we're basically going to be going over through our top 100 rankings. But obviously, if we have some other guys that we want to talk about, we're not going to stray away from any of those characters. We're going to be putting that stuff on the right there so you guys can tag along. But anyways, it's been a pretty fascinating week. I think just yesterday, Jiricek just ranked atop of Bob McKenzie's list, which is the big buzz right now. I still find it hilarious, because I'll be honest, I wouldn't say I'm team Slafkovsky. I wouldn't say I'm team Cooley, team Wright. I think all of them deliver something to the table that each of them cannot. And I think it's really just going to come down to personal preference to which team takes each, it really comes down to just who will Montreal take. I personally think it'll still be Wright, simply because they are drafting in Montreal.
Yeah.
And from what I've found, what I figured out, I do not think there will ever be a majority of people that are angry. I think there are many people that will be happy with whoever Montreal takes.
Yeah.
But I will say there will be more displeased fans if they take Slafkovsky than Wright. Yeah. But I still think there will be more people that like it. But I don't know what fits it, but it's just
I remember the reaction when they drafted Kotkaniemi.
Yeah, and
that one lady, that one lady went viral. Yeah,
that Skeletor. Look at
they don't want to see that ever again.
No, watch them. They're gonna go right off the board, and they'll do a Nemec, or they'll do Frank Nazar. They'll do something stupid like that. And you know what though? I have found, on my personal channel, I just uploaded that video on Slafkovsky, and the amount of people who have misinterpreted that video, they read the title, because honestly, I'll be honest, I put a little bit of there's a kick on there. The best draft season you've ever seen. Yeah. You got to watch the video to get what I'm talking about.
Yes,
it's kind of from an influential standpoint.
Yeah,
and all that, not per se as stats, but then you got people who just click on that. No, Connor McDavid, and Shane Wright's better. I'm you did not watch the video.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, let's break down that top 3 of Wright, Cooley, and Slafkovsky.
Mm-hmm.
How would each of us rank it? Jared, you can go first, Mr. Head Scout.
I'm gonna add Savoy in there because I have him as the 3rd best over Slafkovsky. But if I'm talking about just the 3, Slafkovsky, Wright, and Cooley, who really seems like the consensus top 3 right now. I still have Shane Wright number 1, Cooley 2nd, and then Slafkovsky behind the 2 of them. I think honestly, actually, Logan Cooley's put himself closer to Shane Wright than Slavkovsky has, because I think Logan Cooley's got probably the highest offensive upside in the draft, just in terms of, the way he can handle the puck and he can create really crafty plays. It's something you'll see skilled NHLers do. And, that's the biggest thing for me with Cooley. So like the appeal with Slavkovsky obviously is his size. He's 6'4", almost 230 pounds. And I think he's a good skater without being exceptional for his size, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he will be fine in transition. He can carry the puck. He's got the skilled hands to evade traffic and defenders, while also having obviously the big size and to protect the puck in the corners and all that. He's not going to be insanely agile and quick off his edges like a Cooley or Shane Wright or Matthew Savoy, but it's not an area that I would necessarily be concerned about, because he has that size to just shield off any defender and all that. So the appeal with Slavkovsky clearly comes down to his size. My question would be is, because he's around 220 pounds, do we want him to gain even any more weight?
It's going to be scary.
Exactly. If he gets up to 230, 235, I think that's going to probably worsen his game. I think that he's going to get slower. He's not going to be as quick in the corners, and when he's already not extremely quick. So, I think for me, that's the one thing I look at with Slavkovsky, where I'm kind of like, he's got just the natural size that everyone's going to gravitate to, but I would honestly probably not want him to get any bigger. But to round it all up, I'd still have Shane Wright at number 1, Cooley 2, and then Slavkovsky's in a tier just below them, but it's like minimal difference.
That's fair. Well, like one of the whole things with Slavkovsky too is just, from what I've heard from everyone, and like I've had people comment on my videos, they're like, if you understood these Slovak interviews, you would love him even more, kind of thing. Just like, I've heard everything about this kid is just absolutely just phenomenal. He's got the character and everything. He's got the mindset. He's built for it. Like he's not going to be someone who comes to North America and he's overwhelmed. And I think he's prepped himself. And I find it incredible how he's been able to like handle all the pressure with everything after the Olympics and become an even better player. And I think that's consensus. I think each of us can say after the Olympics, he was better everywhere. When he came back to Finland, when he went to the World Championships, he was better. And I think once the World Juniors continue in August, we're going to see that again, hopefully with the entire team, because they were a good team even like before it all shut down. But if I were to talk from a realistic standpoint, I do have Wright at number 1 still. But kind of like what they said when they were talking to Bob McKenzie, it is razor thin for me between Slavkovsky and Wright. Very, very thin. If you like, because Montreal is in search of they're in search of a center, correct? Or is it a winger they want?
I mean,
they can go for anything, can they really?
Yeah, I mean, if they get Shane Wright down the middle, it's 1 and 2, right? So you would have, with Nick Suzuki, so you have Shane Wright, and then you would have Nick Suzuki flip-flop them as first line center, second line center, whatever. Yeah. But then you have Slavkovsky, who's a natural left winger, in my opinion. I know there's some conversation about him potentially being a center, but I think he'll just be best as the winger.
I don't think his skating is enough for
don't do it. Don't do it. Like, I think the Canucks, like, I would love the Canucks to move up to a second pick, being the Vancouver boy I am, seeing them move up and take Slavkovsky, because I'm such a big fan. I got a jersey on pre-order if that happens right away. But I think the whole thing with the Canucks, so they're like, I think they interviewed him and said, can you play center? He's like, well, I played center when I was 14. Who didn't? Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure every guy at that caliber when they're 14 played probably defense at one point as well.
Yeah, most likely, honestly.
Like, seriously. So, like, if the Canucks were to do that, don't play him at center. Let him do what he is good at already. But I right now I'd go Wright Slavkovsky, Cooley, And then after that, it's a bit of a jumble. We'll get into that later. But Mikko, any final stuff on that top three there? Who would you put?
Yeah, I have the same same order as you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it well in your YouTube video, about his impact and how he's been able to take the pressure so well, and how he's been able to show how big of a star he can be,
Mm-hmm.
outside of the rink as well.
Yeah, like he's a celebrity. He's literally already a celebrity, and that's where like you can't say that about Wright. You couldn't say that about even McDavid. I don't think. Like it's the guy is just built for the camera. Like that guy, he's one of those guys where when his NHL career is done, he's going to go back to Slovakia. He's probably going to become a politician. He's probably going to become the president of Slovakia. He's going to be one of he's going to be like one of those guys where it's just the entire country loves him to bits and they want him to do everything. It's like when in Canada here, like we joke about Gretzky getting into politics.
Like
like, and I've heard that even when I was like 13. I'm like, why not? That sounds cool, but whatever. I'd say right now, even as we have it here, obviously Jared proved his points enough. That's why we got Savoy at number 3 on our rankings. I have no pain for that.
Yeah, and I want to say, about Shane Wright, I think he's such a sure NHL future NHL player.
Yeah,
and
if he's not a first line.
Yeah, and Slavkovsky has so much to learn yet. I don't think he's gonna be in NHL next season.
Mm-hmm.
And or if he is, he's being rushed.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't had a consistent season outside of NHL, a full season. In a club, and that's something I would like to see him have, before NHL.
Yeah,
and that's the big difference for me between Wright and Slavkovsky.
Yeah, because even this season, like Slavkovsky went up and down with the U20 team, a few times. The beginning, take it after the Olympics, he stayed on the men's team the whole time. But before that, it was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. But I think he proved
Yeah, like for example, I just brought up his stats just to look at this. Kotkaniemi, another guy who I think a lot of people thought he was rushed to the NHL after going 3rd overall in 2018. His draft season, he played 57 games, scored 10 goals and 29 points in the same league as Slavkovsky, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, production for an 18-year-old, or he may have been actually 17 for majority of the year because he's a July birthday.
Yeah.
Production's actually not terrible, I would say. And then you look at Slavkovsky and just bringing it up right now, his stats for this season, 31 games, 5 goals, 10 points. And then, like you said, he spent with the U20 team, he had 11 games played, 18 points. Obviously, he was much better then. Yeah. But, he didn't play in as many games. Now you can add in the playoff games, which he played 18 playoff games for TPS. So that's what was that, 49 games, and he had 17 points. So production is behind Kotkaniemi, who is another guy. I think a lot of people say he was rushed. So again, it's one of those situations with Slavkovsky where it's like, maybe don't rush him. Yes, he's looked good at the World Championships, Olympics, all that. But, let him just go back to TPS and play first, second line or whatever they may slot him in, and just, look at him to get more production, because that's going to build his confidence. And then in a year from now, or New Jersey, because he's probably going to go 1 or 2. So when he comes over, he's going to have more offensive confidence. He's going to develop a bit more than being rushed to the NHL. So I agree with that point. It's, Shane Wright, I think we expect to see him go into the NHL right away. Slafkovsky, I think some people do expect him to go into the NHL right away.
Yeah,
but
I
think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. I would personally, if we're talking about guys who put in right away.
In Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're talking about right away, like guys who want to go right away, right for sure. I'd even almost argue Cooley, but then I think it's going to be like Jack Hughes stuff where you're going to put him in. It's going to look bad. You're going to be like, why did we take this guy? Yeah. And then you're going to find out like 3-4 years later. It's like, oh yeah, this is why. Just hopefully he doesn't get hurt. But okay, that top three was fun. I think that top three was fun. We got so much in there. That's the thing I love about those guys. I don't want to say they're interchangeable, but each of them has their own worth to be a top three pick. They're a first overall pick. And I think down the line, we're going to all look at this and go, it was all silly. Like, obviously, I think I would say, obviously, there's always going to be people, oh, this guy has a more higher chance being a bust. We don't know. We simply don't know. To say he's going to be a bust, it's so hard. You can't just, it's like, I'm trying to just even think of like people are calling Lafreniere a bust already. Give him time, man.
He looked amazing in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought he looked a lot better. Seriously. Yeah. I was like, I just won our fantasy league for the playoffs, and a big part of that was because I took Lafreniere with a sleeper pick, and I was getting laughed at. You wait and see. But anyways, if we're going to go back, we're going to be looking into the other ones here, and this is where I think it's going to be exciting because I think we got 2 team Nemec guys here, and we got 1 team Jiricek guy here. The Nemec Jiricek debacle has been a DraftPro specialty over the entire season. And I know I'm Team Nemec. I think it's Jared that's Team Nemec, and Mikko is all alone with Team Jiricek right now. Although I will always say this, though, even though I am Team Nemec, I still believe that both of them have outstanding qualities. Both of them, I think, are going to be for sure NHLers. I see why people would take Jiricek over Nemec and so on and so forth. But when we're talking pure offensive upside and we're talking like just pure ability to be a top 2 defenseman, to be a difference maker, I see more of it in Nemec than I do Jiricek. But Jiricek's qualities in his own end and the size he brings, and he does have a little bit of offensive upside. I don't think he'll ever be a guy who puts up numbers like Nemec, but he does have qualities.
Man,
his shot.
I haven't seen that kind of a one-time slapper, for a long time.
And I will say that is probably my big, when it comes down to offense, Jiricek's shot is miles ahead of Nemec. Yeah. Like, even like watching Nemec in the Holinka, I think one of the things I was always writing was, if this guy could hit the net, it would be so much more better. Like so many ones where he just like, I wouldn't even call them dumb shots. He just fires it just haphazardly. And it just goes miles wide. It's like, well, if you just tone that back a little bit, man. And I think it like later in the year, he got a little bit better with it, but it was still nothing. It's not like where I was like, oh yeah, draft him because he's got a great point shot or anything. Unlike Jiricek, where it's like, this guy's got a literal bomb on his hands. And that was, once again, that was something at the beginning of the year we're all going, this guy's got a cannon.
Yeah, at the men's world championships, he scored against Great Britain, that was one heck of a slap shot,
He's definitely a guy where it's like, if he makes it, Jiricek's one of those guys you have in the hardest shot competition when he's like 24, 25, and he's got the potential to be one of those guys who has like a consistent 95, 100 mile an hour slapper going like Shea Weber style and stuff like that. But yeah, right now I still have Nemec over Jiricek. I've got a bunch of others. I've got a couple of stats that I wrote down just because, and even though Jiricek's shot is better, I think I found out that Nemec's shots per game. He's got 2.3 shots per game on net. That's across all competitions. Jiricek 1.7. But then this is also where it's difficult because Jiricek was injured for so much of the year in the Czech league. He didn't get to play a lot in the Czech league. Well, Nemec played the entire season, and to my information, didn't miss a game. In fact, I think he played some extra. I think he even played two U18 games in that D1A tournament, stuff like that. Like, he played a lot of hockey, but breakouts, entries, all that, I have Nemec by a mile. But the upside of Jiricek is simply just still the same. I think it's safer to take Jiricek, but the upside on Nemec is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think so too. I can see that point. I think Nemec, he has a potential to be your top defenseman. Your in your top two, and even your biggest star on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Quinn Hughes, somebody like that. But
something like that. And I'll even say I tried to tune into some of his playoff games at the end there, and I was like, I wasn't as taken away by his skating as I was when he plays like in U18 and stuff like that. But it's like, to say he's a bad, to knock on his skating is not. It's not a fair excuse or anything like that. Do you have any thoughts, Jared? Any thoughts on the Nemec Jiricek?
The main reason why I have Nemec over Jiricek is probably because of the hockey IQ. I think Nemec's hockey IQ is higher than Jiricek. And the second reason would be skating. I think Nemec is a far better skater. I think he can really command transition a lot better with his skating than Jiricek can. I'll say in my viewings, though, that Jiricek actually can move the puck a little bit better while under pressure. And he's got a bit of a softer touch than Nemec. And this is all when under pressure. Nemec can sometimes fold under the pressure, and then he'll have like off the glass and out plays, or just Hail Mary passes to alleviate the pressure that's on him from below the goal line or below the dots in his own zone. So that's another area that, I think Jiricek does have over Nemec, but the skating is a big thing for me. I mean, I look at what is really valuable as a defenseman nowadays in the NHL, and I think the skating is one of the biggest things in my opinion. And the hockey IQ is the next one. So I think Nemec has just got the higher upside, and I think he's going to, carrying the puck in transition. I think Nemec is going to excel more when he carries the puck. And then I would say he's got a little more offensive upside, but like we said, Jiricek's slap shot and his shot is definitely going to make him maybe score more goals than Nemec, but maybe not put up more points.
Mm-hmm. And and one of the things when you're talking about skating too is Jiricek was looking good after all of the injury stuff, after that injury took at the World Juniors, but I didn't watch enough to ever go did his skating get better after the injury or anything like that. But I mean, that's always going to be something. Yeah, it's something. Sometimes
it was a bit worse.
Yeah. It's something where you gotta think about it.
He looked labored. His stride looked a little bit labored, and he was forcing it. Not a lot of extensions in the strides, which I think really hinder the explosiveness that he has. So
he was always like you said, I would never have put him in like a top caliber skater in this draft, but it didn't look like you said, it looked weaker, if you were to put it that way.
Yeah, I think before like in Czech Extraliga, he used to sometimes when he was joining the rush and then the play went the other way, he had the speed to catch the play and make back check.
Mm-hmm.
And even get to the puck.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't even imagine him doing that with the speed he had in the World Champs.
Yeah. If we're talking about other defensemen, I'm just going to say this too. Nemec and Jiricek are probably going to be the first two defensemen taken in this draft, but I do not think, if you look down the year, down the line, 5-10 years down the line, I do not think those guys are going to be the two top defensemen in this draft class. And I'm going to go WHL heavy. I'm going to go Matejchuk and Korchinski are going to be, those guys are going to be front runners down the line. And I really like Korchinski, but if I'm being realistically, I think Matejchuk is going to be a guy that everyone is going to be just wishing they took in the top 10. There are some people that are really high on Matejchuk. I do see a team doing it if they really want to. One team I really see doing it might be San Jose at 11. They need lots of defensemen. When we were doing our mock draft, I was in the middle of my grad, and I was thinking I couldn't have everything set up on my phone. So I'm like, oh, who's still there? I'm like, you know what? I really like Jagger Firkus. I'm taking him. And then I look back on him like, they would never take Jagger Firkus. They don't need him. But like, it's interesting. But I think if you look down the line in like 5-10 years, Korchinski and Matejchuk are going to be the two top guys simply because of their skating. Their offensive just awareness is just off the charts. Matejchuk's speed, in my opinion, is one of the make or breaks. But is there any word on those guys for you two?
It's kind of funny. I look at Nemec and Jiricek, but I also think that they won't be the best offensive defenseman in the draft. I think they will be, like you said, Matejchuk, Korchinski, they all look really good. But I really think the defenseman in this draft that's going to probably put up the most points is going to be Minchikov out of the OHL. I think, just the talent, the skill level, the sheer aggressive offensive instincts that gets him in trouble a lot. I would say that honestly is probably the highest of any defenseman available in this draft, and why I can see him putting up 10 to 20 goals a year and putting up around 60 points. I think he's got a lot of work to do in terms of his defensive instincts, his defensive abilities, just kind of like his focus. When he's defending the D zone, or like he's defending the cycle and all that, he could lose his man in front of the net, or he's slow to react to plays around the goal line in the corner. So I would say, Minchikov is going to have the highest upside, but he's right there with Matejchuk and Korchinski in terms of who I would take between the three of them.
Yeah, and I would just say my favorite one. It's so tough because I never got to see Matejchuk live. I got to see Korchinski live on numerous occasions, especially when Seattle came into Vancouver when I was down in Vancouver for a bit during the regular season. And then when I went back to Kamloops to watch the semifinals, I got to see a lot of Korchinski. And there's a lot that when people rip on Korchinski's defensive game, watching him against the Blazers, I was like, his defensive game is not as bad as many people think. Does it have blips here and there? Yes, it does. But which defenseman doesn't? Like, you can say that about the best, like Jiricek. You can say about Ryan Chesley, that all of them have their moments where it's like, okay, what have you done there? And not even defenseman, you can say about any single player out there. I'm pretty sure you could find a clip of Sidney Crosby last year going, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, literally, you could.
So like, I always find that's like, it's a loose argument when you have like one clip or two of them like doing the wrong thing. Of course, they're not going to do the right thing every single time. They're human beings. They're also teenagers. but Korchinski's defensive game is not as bad as I thought. Matejchuk's either. Obviously, it could always be a little bit better. Like, and I think Korchinski got a little bit more exposed versus Edmonton, but that is Edmonton. They are in an absolute wagon. Yeah. And I think Seattle figured out how to deal with Kamloops later on in that series. Broke my heart, but he was fun to watch. He was also shooting a lot more. And I think that was another thing. In the regular season, he never tested his shot that much. I'd still have Matejchuk's shot over most of those guys. He's a defenseman with a fantastic shot. But Korchinski was smart with his shooting in the playoffs, like really just placing it through screens, getting in those high percentage zones. His patience, just an absolute, just phenomenal defenseman. And his skating for a guy who's 6'2" was just, it was pretty. It was really pretty. I always talked about Lindgren having the prettiest skating for a defenseman in this draft, but Korchinski's was on another level. It was so tight.
It's just really fluid and effortless, honestly, just in every single direction. And him and Matejchuk just have, like, when it comes to defense, like you were talking about, everyone has, areas they can improve on. But the two of them, I would say they're really good with their gap control. And that's a lot of that is to their skating and their agility.
Mm-hmm. And like, trying to think, and Minchukov, where would you place them? Like, let's rank those three. Where would you put Minchukov over those three?
Well, I put Minchukov honestly, between him and Matejchuk was very, very close. Just because I saw more of those two than I did see of Korchinski. But I do have Minchikov ahead, and he would be number one out of those three, only because of offensive upside and the ceiling that he could, that he can get to. But I think Matejchuk and Korchinski are safer picks. Matejchuk's, like I said, right there with Minchikov. I think he's, someone that Matejchuk, I can see. I had a comparable to him. I just forget who it was, but he's someone that I can honestly see turning into a top pairing defenseman, and excelling at both ways, because I think his skating, his gap control is very good right now. I think he just needs a little bit more development with his D zone awareness. And then once he gets that, I think, he is definitely someone that I would trust playing probably 24, 25 minutes, maybe like a Morgan Riley, but a little bit better defensively. And then Korchinski, I have just at number 3 out of those 3. But again, that's kind of because I didn't see him as much as I watched Matejchuk and Minchikov. But Korchinski, his skating makes me want to take him, in the top 20 of the first round.
Mm-hmm. I would even argue here.
And,
I'd even argue higher.
I want to, ask you, because, how many defensemen do you have like in top 10, for example? Because after the top guys, there is not that many, really, really elite forwards, I think.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's going to be like, this is the thing with this draft. Honestly, between 5 to 20, 5 to 25, so much can happen. We can I'm just looking at ours right now. For example, we got Marco Kasper at 23. A team could easily take Marco Kasper at 9 or 10 if they really want to. Yeah. We have Danila Yurov at 9. Same thing. He can go all the way back to like 20, 22. Connor Geeky, 14. That's a guy I've heard some people say he might slip into the second. People that also say, no, he's big. Take him 6th or 7th overall. Brad Lambert, Ivan Miroshnichenko, Rutger McGroarty is someone that we've always been really high on, but some people have him like in the 40s and 50s. It's crazy. And then you look at, like, I'm just going to go way into the back there. Guys we have later in the draft: Owen Pickering, 51. Simon Forsmark, 41. Cal O'Delius, 43. These are guys who also just across the board and across the entire community of scouting, those are some guys that get hired. But like, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. I would not be shocked if there are so many guys that everyone had as a cemented early second, late first pops up into the top 15. I'd have no, and I personally wouldn't be so surprised. Like it's Lane Hudson's another one. I just brought that one up just because I saw it at the end there. But it's
the Russian and Belarusian guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I also wanted to touch on today too, just because obviously, if you guys didn't know, the CHL, with the import draft, no Russians, no Belarusians. So I think we can all agree I don't like it. Those kids didn't like, we're not trying to turn this into a political podcasting tyrant, but it's not fair for those kids. They didn't do anything. It's not like this is their fault, and it's going to affect their careers. And something I did, I literally, because I was intrigued by this. I went back to 2011, so I did like the last 10 years of the NHL draft. And when it comes to Russian players, there have been 176 Russians taken since 2011. 48 of those players played in the CHL, so that's 27%. And at Belarusians, it's a lot lower. Only 12 players have been taken, but 8 of those guys played in the CHL. And if you take out 2021, there was none of those guys in 2021 were from the CHL. So 8 of 9 players in the, like, discounting 2021 and those like prior 9 years, 8 of those 9 players played in the CHL. And now you're going to have no Belarusians this year coming to the CHL. It's difficult. it's going to be difficult for those guys. And like the same thing with some of the Russian guys, even though it's not as much, I still think there's going to be those guys, you know, we're set on playing in North America and now they're going to have no opportunity to. It's really, really difficult. And when it comes to drafting into the NHL, I know that there were rumors where it's like Montreal's not drafting any Russians. I think there was another team in there, but I think there were just rumors. I don't think there's anything. There's no sanctions with the NHL on Belarusian or Russian players. Mm-hmm. But I personally, I believe because of all the stuff that has happened, those fringe players, ones that go like in the 4th to 7th round, you may just, I think you're going to just see teams take North American and European players over these guys. Obviously, I'm not going to say guys like Yurov aren't going to be taken. Miroshnichenko, even though I'm just going to sideline that. I'm so happy that he's on the mend with all this cancer treatment. That was a scary thing. You never hearing anything about that. He got to talk to Mario Lemieux as well. I thought that was really cool. I'm really happy for him because that's something you never wish upon anyone, let alone a kid. It's horrible. But when it comes to those guys, they're safe. Even guys like Grandenin, I think is it Grandenin or Grudenin? I always screw that. Grudenin. That's a guy I think who's just going to slip. I've been told by many people that he's probably going to slip. A guy I graduated with, actually, Chris Faber, you probably all know about him if you've heard about him on Twitter. Yeah. Telling me he's I would not be shocked if Grudenin is one of those guys where, a first round talent and everyone thinks he's a first round talent, but slips to the 4th or 5th round simply because of interest. It's going to be interesting, but guys who I think are also going to have problems, some guys we had Raul Yakupov, Artyom Barabosha, these guys who are probably taken a little bit later, Artyom Duda. I don't think there's going to be a severe drop in Russians drafted. Last year was the most actually in a long time. Since 2003, 29 Russians taken. But I would not be shocked if 5 or 10 guys that would normally get selected in a normal year don't hear their name called on NHL Draft Day, and I think it's going to be hard, but there's simply nothing.
I saw somewhere, I think it was The Athletic that interviewed some scouts and executives of NHL teams, and one very interesting comment was that one I think he was an executive who said that around a third of NHL teams are not gonna select any Russian players, and a third of the NHL teams are only selecting Russian, Belarusian players if they are clearly better than their European or North American counterpart, and 1/3 is not going to care.
That's harsh. See, and and even though there's still going to be teams taking them and stuff like that, but just process of elimination, these other guys they're not. It's not like these guys are going to be charity cases and be we're going to be taking 4 of them this year because they're there. It's not going to happen. There's going to be guys that get. And I wonder if it's down the line if they, if these teams are going to shape up and be okay, we're going to do this. Because I also find it sad because if you were to look at every single team in the NHL, I don't have this stat on my mind. I would assume 20, at least 30 out of 32 teams have a Russian guy on their roster.
Yeah.
If not all of them. That's sad. And especially when I heard, because the one that was rumored was Montreal. It could be in that 1/3 list that we don't even know. But they have Alexander Romanov on that team, man. You got Russians. Imagine being a player on that team and hearing that.
I mean, you said, 29 Russians were drafted last year. 3 Belarusians were drafted last year, so 32 in total if you combine the two of them. I would honestly say you're probably going to get 15. It's going to be a lot less than I think we expect because of all these rumors that, you guys have both just said. It sounds like NHL teams, there are some NHL teams that are just honestly straight up not willing to take any Russians or Belarusians this year. And I agree. It's unfair to the kids. They didn't do it. They're they're just gonna have parts of their career ruined because of this, or their development's going to take longer. But it's something that could happen. We could see is, say 15 Russians get drafted this year, and then next year we get like 35 because it's a year later. And then they're like, all right, now we're drafting some of these 1 year overagers that were eligible this year's draft, but they don't want to do it this year because of everything that's going on. But
publicity and all that.
Yeah, they'll wait a year and all that. Like, it's just, we've seen like some of that in different scenarios happen before, and I could see that happening again. But but yeah, like you said, there are exceptions. Russians, Yurov, Miro,
Isn't there that Belarusian goalie, Zhigalov, Ivan Zhigalov?
Yeah, well, he plays in Quebec. He plays for Sherbrooke. So I'm wondering if there's any difference there.
I would assume most of the guys who came to the CHL, like if we're talking guys like Kudryatsayev, isn't that the guy who played on Sioux? Kirill. There was him.
Kirill.
Then you got Minty. You got guys like that Minty's getting taken regardless. But
Gazizov from London Knights.
Gazizov was a guy you were really high on. I knew about that.
And I fell on him. I don't like him anymore. Sorry, Gazizov.
That I know. I remember. I think I was like reading up on stuff on him too. I'm like, oh, it's too bad because he started off really well, did he? He started off very well.
He did, and then he turned into Mr. Inconsistent. I mean, and now, yes, he wasn't getting a great deal of ice time because it was the London Knights, but he wasn't elevating his game to the point where the coaching staff were like, oh, I got to put you out there more. He just kind of blended in and looked similar to everyone else. And so I thought he was a top 100 pick, and now I'm like, he's around 120. He's like late fourth round, early fifth rounder is where I see him now.
That sounds like a Fred Lambert in small scale.
Might as well just segue into that now.
Yeah,
I know Mikko has his beliefs on. Yep. You know what? I'll let Mikko have it. He's probably seen him the most out of any of us here, being from Finland and all that. But it's when I watched him in those 2 World Junior games this year. They're against Austria, they're against Germany. He looked good, and that reminded me of the Brad Lambert I saw in the U20s when he was 16, 17 years old. And he's got the tools. You don't come across guys who skate like that. You don't come across guys who can stick handle at those speeds. The guy, and I will say this, like you could say it all you want. I do see a guy who's confident. I do see a guy who's got the mindset for it. I just literally, it's just going to come down to him if he wants to, if it's going to work. I don't even know how to put it. It's such a dividing prospect. Like I said, we had Craig, we were talking earlier before we started recording, Craig Button having him at 45. I think that's asinine. I think that's psychotic. I would never want him slipping to the second round. I see an Aatu Ratu 2.0 here, where it's like, you're going to be making a big mistake. You're going to look at this in 8 months ago. Why did we let this happen? The Islanders got away with robbery there. If you obviously haven't seen what Aatu Ratu's been up to, like seriously, like even 2 months after he signed his, not even 2 months, like this World Junior Summer Showcase, he signed his contract in August with the Islanders. And then later on, there he is in the Summer Showcase, gets 14 points in 6 games, goes back to the league, gets traded to Jokerit, puts up basically a point per game. And Mikko was telling me that was a Cinderella story. That was not like him going to an insane team or anything like that. Like, the guy did it on it. I don't want to say on his own, but he worked hard. And
yeah, they have like imports below 20,000 euros per year. So
yeah, like I don't see why. I do not see why this team or why Brad Lambert should be taken that late. Do I think Brad Lambert should be a top 3 pick? No, definitely not. I'm not saying that. There are some people who are still like very high on him like that, but like, even though you can't say production's everything, production is a little bit. You want to see execution. You want to see guys who are able to do that. And sadly, this year, Lambert was not that guy. I still think he got better in some cases and stuff like that, but it's very slim. It's very slim. Like, and he had his few outbreaks this year. I liked it when he stood up for himself in that international game against Czechia. That was an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was the one where he flipped off the other coach. What was it, TPS's coach, I think? Or
I can't remember. Yeah.
I just remember watching that. It's like, okay, I get it, man. You're upset. It was a little bit of a cheap hit, but oh God. That's a little too far, man. Yeah. Like that's in my opinion, that's the equivalent of like in the playoffs, you spitting on your hand and shaking their hand after that. It's like, man, it's just it's immature. Like, don't do that. As angry as you are at them, like, even like yes, whatever about that. I still think Lambert is a top 15, 20 guy, like Jared said, literally just off his floor alone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be a difficult one with him. I'm really just interested to see who takes him. Like back then it was always just like, he's a lottery pick for sure. He's going to one of these teams. Now it's like wild card. You have no idea where he's going to go. I think you were saying in a chats earlier, Jared, like it could be a guy who's just a great trading piece down the line for some team.
Yeah.
Like let's say a team like LA, but they don't have their pick anymore because apparently they just traded for Fiala. But guys in those like 22 to 30 range, and it's like now you got a great trading asset.
Well, I mean, that's part of honestly drafting and developing your own players. It's not just all about having those guys ice into your lineup, right? Sometimes it's about having that cupboard to use as trade pieces. And so I think Lambert could get to that. But there's red flags, there's character, attitude issues, there's play away from the puck inconsistencies, there's physical inconsistencies where he's just not strong enough. He can get there. I mean, that's one thing, is you can get stronger, you can get more physical. Important to note though that he is a late birthday, right?
Yes.
And he's already, so he's December, but compare that to Jonathan Lekkerimäki, the Swedish winger. I think he's got a July birthday, and he's kind of undersized as well. But you can look at that and say, well, okay, he's undersized, but he's also got a later birthday, July birthday, so he's still got, he's a bit behind the guys like Cutter Gauthier, Shane Wright, Matt Savoy, the guys who have a January birthday, who you can see have, quote unquote, that man muscle. Lambert technically should have that, being a December 03 birthday. He just doesn't really have it. Some people take longer. I took a lot longer than a lot of my other classmates. So, but I'm curious, if we will see Lambert fall in the second round. And Mikko, if you think that's fair, if it's fair for him to go second round where Aatu Räty went, right? And which was like 50 or 52, so, I think 52. Yeah. So do you see Lambert going that low as well?
It depends, on the on who picks really, because I think in a team where there is already a deep prospect pool, he would be a good asset. But if he's your so your hope for the future, I wouldn't put my money on that.
Yeah,
because I think like you said about the LA Kings pick, that's the only team I would see picking him in top 20. And for me, I would like to see him before 25th pick. I think 25 to 35, I think that would be fair, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him slip a bit longer even. It depends on who's picking.
What do you think is the biggest thing that's holding him back just from producing at the top in the top Finnish league? I mean, I think we all expected him to probably at least put up, I'd say 20 plus points this year. And I don't have his stats off the top of my head, but I know he didn't score He didn't score that much, and his production was one thing that was, a big reason why. So what's holding him back in the Finnish league?
He can bring the puck to the offensive zone with ease, because of his skating. But after that, he's got no idea what to do with puck. It's of course, it's there are of course some confidence issues for sure. But he right now he just doesn't have the confidence with the puck to go through defenders to he basically he just stops at the blue line almost. He either dumps it in after the blue line, or he almost blind passes to basically anyone who either is or isn't there.
Just forgets what to do.
I've seen him do that pretty much.
Yeah.
And,
rather than just abuse that speed, it's like, man, like just take if you keep moving your feet, like you don't have to go for a pass, just keep going.
Yeah, because I saw him at under 15, at the Pohjola camp. I don't know if you're familiar with it. The first Finnish national team event.
I'm guessing I think that was the thing where it's like I saw a bunch of highlights of Aaron Kiviharju, I think I know what you're
yeah. So basically it's a showcase tournament for Finnish under 15 nationals, and there I've seen him, production wise, I think he's worse than he was then.
Wow. Like,
because after the blue line he's so much worse.
I think it could be honestly a question to his hockey IQ, and that's one thing that I've questioned when I've watched him in the Finnish league is like you said, he'll enter the zone, but as soon as he enters the zone, it's either a dump into the corner or a blind rush pass. So to me, he's not surveying quick enough. He's not assessing all of his options. He's looking at he's looking at option A, and he's trying to execute on option A. He's not looking at option B or option C, which may be the better option in terms of keeping possession and prolonging possession for the team in the offensive zone, or creating a chance to the trailer defenseman that's jumping up, something like that. So I personally don't know if Bradley Hibbert has the best hockey IQ, and I think he's got. I mean, they play on bigger ice, right, than North America.
Yeah, they do.
So it's going to get tighter when he comes to North America. There, when the ice gets tighter, in my opinion, something I look for is can you execute quicker and smarter plays, and he's already struggling to do that on big ice right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a guy who's got a lot of the tools, but he's not piecing it all together, and maybe he's not smart enough.
He doesn't have the toolbox, as we'd say. He's got all the tools. They're just lying all over the garage floor, and it's just a mess. He doesn't know what to do with it. He's got too many tools. He's got like 6 screwdrivers, 2 wrenches. You have like a couple of drills, but he just has nowhere to put them all. And just like, I mean, I'm not going to get to the whole like drama thing, because I hate rumors and all that, especially like everything like with his dad and all that. It's like, oh, he wants this, he needs the perfect thing. Leave that out of it. We have no idea what it is. It's interesting to look at, but who are we to judge?
And I think one thing I think I'm kind of building a story behind it in my head, because at some point he was so good, for example at the under 15 nationals or under 16 nationals and so on. At that point he was so good, and he was so good compared to almost anybody else in Finland, that and I think he realized it, and he used it, and he of course seemed selfish at times, And I think right now what he's done for the past 2 seasons at least, he's trying to be less selfish.
Yeah. It's a reality check. And it's like, that's with so many people. Like one of the whole things I read, like Matthew Savoy in this draft, like the whole thing, he was a guy where it's like exceptional status. Look at this guy. He's been told he's the best for like his whole life. And he never got exceptional status. He played a lot of games with Winnipeg Ice that season, but he was not effective as a 15, like early 16-year-old at all. And then he went down to Dubuque, and, you know, everyone's still like thinking about it. But I think this year he had like, it was just he went against the odds. I mean, naturally he was going to get better, but I think he started to realize it's like, I got to man up a little bit. I can't just think I'm the best guy and I can walk everyone anymore. Like, so it's with every prospect, it's different. And Lambert, I think, was probably the same thing. You're told you're the best, you're a top 3 generational player. And then, you know, a little bit of reality gets sprinkled on top of you. And it's just like, oh, wow, that's a lot more hard than I thought. It's crazy. Like once you start like shaping stuff up to like the U20 and then to the professional level, it's just such a reality check for some of these guys. I'm trying to think of that for more of them. Like right now, I'm just looking at more down the list here. I'm trying to think if there's any guys where it's like other guys that like got better. Like we were talking about Lakaramecki earlier. That guy was really good in the SHL. I thought Ogren was still really good in the SHL. Ostland, like that whole Djurgården trio there was just even what would you call it for 4? Quadrio? I don't even know if it's got a word. It's or quartet. Quartet, yeah. Call it the quartet, like with Carlo Delius back there as well. Like I thought those guys were all pretty good in the SHL when they came up to that ice there. Like none of them seemed out of place or anything like that. Other Swedish guys in there. Philip Bystedt was still not that bad. I don't think Suzdalev ever got to go up to no, he was Allsvenskan. He never got to go up to the SHL. But like, yeah, getting that experience there just in the pro league is just good for some of them, even if it's just a little sprinkle of it. But with guys like Lambert, all those guys, it's difficult. It's a wake up call. It's a real wake up call. And that's why you can't rush these guys. Like even though Shane Wright's going to go into the NHL right away next year, I think there's going to be growing pains.
And as a side note, Djurgården is that they are relegated to Allsvenskan.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but I think that, you know, what's funny is that could actually be better for you know, the Lakaramecki, Ogren and Ostland. That could actually be better for them because they're going to get, you know, technically easier competition. It's still going to be tough and still going to be an adjustment going from I would assume they're going to spend their entire seasons in that league, and they won't be playing for the U20 Djurgården's team. But the funny thing about the trio is, in my opinion, they're all 3 different types of players. They play different roles. I mean, Lakaramecki, I think he's a sniper, power play specialist. You know, he's got one of the better shots in the draft class. He's really good from the outside and the perimeter ice and setting up plays or just getting the puck on net. Ogren's kind of your well-rounded, big-bodied winger. You know, he offers up a lot of versatility. He's kind of the guy that I can see turning into a really strong role player in the NHL. You know, a guy that doesn't get a ton of love, but his teammates love him. I mean, like you look at, you know, let's say like Zach Hyman, Blake Coleman, guys like, you know, those where, you know, they're either first, second, or third line. I mean, but they play pivotal roles and you can move them up and down the lineup. And then Ostland, you know, he's undersized, but he's the best skater out of the 3 of them. And he's going to be the primary puck carrier almost anytime he's on the ice, I feel like, because of how quick and agile he is. And, you know, he attacks the middle of the ice in transition. He'll cut into the middle once he gains the zone. And he's a playmaker. I mean, Ostland, if he could score a bit more and he had a bit more scoring instincts, you would say he's right up there, top 15 with the other 2 guys. So it's kind of fascinating. You know, everyone kind of talks about how, well, who is benefiting from who with that trio, because they played as a line when they played on the U20 team. And then at the World Under 18s, the three of them were aligned. So it's like, okay, well, who's elevating who? I think they all elevate each other because they are all three different types of players. So the more I watch them, the more I come to evaluate them, I think they're all going to be NHLers and excel in a different type of role. And that's just kind of fascinating to me because you don't normally see that in a draft class.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm just going to quickly interject with that because if you remember in NHL 14, remember when they had the chemistry system for Hockey Ultimate Team?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you remember how if you wanted to get full chemistry, not only did you have to have guys that are all a part of the same team, you needed guys who had positions that worked with each other. And one of the things that was always 100% chemistry was a two-way forward, a sniper, and a playmaker. And that is, I think, what perfectly sums up that line. If you say what it is, I always love going back to NHL 14. That's when they had it right. But like those guys just fed off of each other. They're just the perfect trio. And like you said about Osland, in my opinion, I'm just going to say this. There were times where his shot looked good in the U18. I thought his shot wasn't as bad, but there were times I watched U20 and I was like, ooh, man, like just get the puck off. What are you doing? Like I could shoot better than that, but obviously
his accuracy is something he needs to work on, and his shot selection.
Yeah.
Also just the, like you said, just getting it off a little bit quicker. But I think that comes with his playmaking instincts, right? He's looking for the pass, and then when the pass isn't there, he's like, okay, now I'm going to shoot, but he's double clutching because he's still thinking about, well, I want to make a pass. So
tendency wise, he reminds me of Hendrix Lapierre. Scared to shoot the puck.
It's a good comparable, actually, because they're both good two-way forwards as well. Both excellent skaters. I think Lapierre just has him in the size. I mean, that's it, right? Like Lapierre had a bit more size in his draft year than Osland, but I would definitely take Osland late first round. And there were times, I think it was Hlinka, right? He was really good in the Hlinka, I think it was. Or did they do a Hlinka this year?
Yeah, they did a Hlinka this year. That's
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I was blanking
I forget.
on that.
I just remember my whole thing is just that everyone was drawn to Slovakia and everyone just forgets about everyone else.
You're right. Yeah. Everyone, it was all, because they went to the gold medal game and then they lost, but they still got silver medal, and that's still a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Another guy that was in the Hlinka that a lot of people always forget that he was, and it was the only time I ever watched him because I don't have the resources to or time to watch it. But Sam Rinsell was one of those people in the Hlinka Gretzky, and I remember watching. I was like, this is a big guy. He can skate, but he wasn't really able to do much after. But I was like, keep an eye on this guy. I think that was one of the things when I written a report. I was like, I don't know where we would rank this guy as of now, but this guy has the frame. This is like your new age defenseman right here. And I like hearing his name more and more throughout the year was something that I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. But I just never got the chance to watch him. I don't know if any of you two have, but any of you have something to add on Sam Rinsell? Because where did we put him in the end there? We put him at 58.
Yeah.
58, and he was ranked 31st on Bob McKenzie's recent scout survey ranking. So NHL scouts are ranking him as a late first rounder, and I'm not at all surprised by that. You have a guy who's 6'4", 180 pounds. He's still got a lot of room to put on muscle, and he is a fluid skater. We talked about how Korchinski skating is very effortless. Well, Sam Rinsell is the exact same. And I remember watching the Hlinka, and I watched the camp before they named the team. And I was like, okay, this, I never heard of him before, and he could really skate. And then, watching him at the Hlinka, he was, just a effortless puck carrier. He could escape pressure so easily. The forecheckers just couldn't stay with him. But he just didn't do much, with the puck. It was a lot of puck carrying. There was a lot of circle, a lot of perimeter play, but not a lot of execution on his passes and creating something with his passes. And I think now, he gained more confidence. He split time. He played in the Chaska High for his high school team. he was a leader there. I didn't watch him there, but I watched him in the USHL for a couple of games, and he's just someone that, like you said, he's a modern day new age defenseman. He's got the natural frame and body type that you would want your defenseman to have, but the skating to back it up. And you're like, you have to take him whenever, and also I believe he's a right shot.
Yes.
And we all know how valuable right shot defensemen are, so I think he's someone that he's able to command the ice a lot with his skating. He's still very raw in his offensive abilities and his defensive game. But, this is someone that I would throw right to my development team and say, teach him how to be better in the defensive zone, teach him better awareness, better positioning, better angling. And then you got a really strong transitional shutdown defenseman. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him go late first round or at least early second round now.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's, to me, it's really tempting that, he's got so much room to grow, both physically and also that the fact that, he joined USHL so late.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have that much experience from high level games.
Yeah, he's gonna be one of those guys where you're like, once again, like I was saying with Korchinski and Matejchuk, you look down like in 5-10 years and you're gonna wonder why this guy slipped, or why the hell did we even take him? Why did we take this kid out of high school? But I think like the skating speaks for itself. And it just, like I said, with the new age defenseman, if you can just get a defenseman who can keep up with how fast forwards are getting, it is so important. Just like you were saying earlier with some of those guys, the gap control, just sticking with these guys. It's not going to be about putting a guy into the boards and cutting him off. It's just going to be about suppressing him and holding him away from the net for as long as you can, just so we cannot make those cuts to the middle. And that's like the same thing. One guy that was also like that, I've seen a lot of him. I remember watching his first career game in Kamloops. It's Mats Lindgren. Like, that's another guy. Beginning of his like WHL career, like his rookie season last year, and at the beginning of this year's defensive game, really just, I was like, man, like, if this guy could defend something, you got something on your hands. And it's sad that his offensive game never really took off this year either. His shot got better. He reminded me a lot like Nemec with his shooting habits, but he was a guy at the end of the year, kind of like Korchinski as well. I was like, this guy is underrated defensively. Watching him play against the Giants in the playoffs, really underrated defensively with his stick positioning and just his whole body positioning, and his skating is just phenomenal. I love that guy to bits. He comes from a family. His dad played in the NHL with the Islanders, with the Canucks. Like, the guy was he's got the bloodline for it. And another Kamloops Blazer, he doesn't have the bloodline for it or anything, but Fraser Minton is another guy. Another guy who just shined in the playoffs when teams started to shut down guys like Logan Stankoven, Luke Toporowski. Fraser Minton was the guy that was finishing so many plays. Like, the guy just had guy who I would have labeled as a mediocre shooter at the beginning of the year, scoring goals from the slot, one-timers, quick wrist shots, still setting up plays. And then the best part is he's still a really reliable two-way forward. You watch him on the penalty kill, just somehow gets his stick on everything. One of my favorite goals he scored was a breakaway goal versus the Giants in game 6. Just got his stick on the guy. I forget, it may have been, I forget who was making the pass, but just got his stick out there, breakaway, shorthanded goal, I think it ended up being the game winner. Just a phenomenal player. And then the last Blazer I'll talk about, Matthew Semenoff, that was a guy I was disappointed with this season. Another guy late, and this is what, remember how we're talking about Lambert, where we're talking like where we want that experience from a late 03. This guy had an extra year in the WHL. Here he is playing alongside who was just Logan Stankoven, who was named the best player in the CHL this year. And the guy couldn't really do much. He had a great start to the year. I'm pretty sure Elite Prospects even had him in their first round. And even me, I was like, whoa, okay. I can, I like seeing it being from Kamloops and all that, but I never saw that even. And I'm high on him. but I lost a lot of motivation and mojo with his game I think I especially saw it once Logan like Stankfin went out to the U20s, went to the World Juniors, and he left him there for about 2-3 weeks. That's when you really noticed his game fall apart. And other guys like Minton, their games took off.
Yeah.
And like Minton's a guy I think is going to get taken a little bit higher than some expect too. I wouldn't be shocked if that's a late 40s or mid to early 50s. I see him in that like region with other guys. Another guy who's probably going to be in that region. We even got him there. Sapovalov, Matthias, who played for Saginaw. That's another guy. He's interesting.
You know, there's a lot of variables into a lot of things that, you know, you're talking about too, where, you know, I've talked to some NHL scouts, and they say, you know, they value playoff performance more than regular season. And look at Minton, right? He outperformed Semenov, outproduced him. Then you look at the other way around, where, you know, some NHL scouts, you got to look at the quality of the team. So I think it's Shapovalov, right?
Yeah. Sapovalov. Yeah. Shapo is the tennis player we got, who's an absolute mental. He's a nutcase.
I love him though. You gotta love the passion that guy plays with.
Oh, I'm an OJ Aliassime guy. This isn't a tennis podcast though.
I don't want to talk about the tennis too much, but I loved when he just turned to the crowd and told everyone to shut up.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, man, this isn't what tennis is about.
I mean, I love it in the way that I think it was such a bad look, you know, on him, but it was hilarious. It's like comedy to me. I'm like, oh my god.
That's fair. Whatever floats your boat.
To bring it back to hockey, you know, Zabavala, who played with the Saginaw Spirit, and they were last place team. They just got the first overall pick for the OHL draft, and they drafted in another exceptional status player, and we'll see how that goes.
The guy that you said probably wouldn't get it, and then look what happens.
Yep. I didn't think so, but I watched him in the OHL Cup, and he was very, very good. He was clearly deserving of it. I still have some concerns with his, you know, frame and his physical maturity, but I guess that's what you would assume from a guy who's going to be entering the OHL at 15 years old.
Yeah.
But you know, with Saginaw, they were very much a up and down team. There wasn't a lot of consistency in their structure or their game to game kind of operation. I mean, so Minchikov, I think, is another guy who played on Saginaw, and if he played on, let's say, the London Knights, we would be looking at Minchikov right there with Nemec and Jiricek, saying he's a top 5 pick. So, you know, the quality of the team that they're playing on in junior really does matter. And that's why I've also seen, you know, I won't bring it back to, you know, guys we've already talked about, but I've seen some people talk about Korchinski that way. You know, well, he was on a really strong Seattle team, but then you run the fine line of, okay, well, did he help make that Seattle team so good and go to the WHL championship, or was he, you know, just kind of a beneficiary from it? I think it's the first one. I think he made that team better, and it's because of how much ice time he had.
Yes.
So, you know, it's just, I think that's something as scouts, you know, and talking to other and scouts and guys who have been around the field for a while, they look at that stuff. They look at the quality of the teams the players are playing on, and, you know, so Zabavalov is someone that I could see going. I could see him going a little bit earlier than we have him or others have him, because they think, you know, if he was on another team, if he was on the Sioux Greyhounds or the London Knights or the Hamilton Bulldogs, you know, his season would have been a lot better. He would have produced over a point a game, and he would have been worthy of early second round, mid second round conversations. And so I think that's one thing I try to look at more and more, and I've looked at that more this year.
Yeah, and that's like there's so many guys like in that. I'm pretty sure Mikko can pull up some from Europe. I'm going to pull up some from the CHL right now. Easily one that I think, I'm just looking at it right here. We got Braden Sherman on Victoria, who's a guy I've been really high on since the beginning of the season. That's a guy, Victoria, dumpster fire this year. Their overages were like their best overager, Taryn Pfizer, was gone for most of the year. Obviously, that's going to make a difference. But Sherman stepped up at the beginning of the year, playing like 28, 30 minutes a night as a forward because everyone was injured. The guy is an absolute machine. Like, that's a guy, you put him on Kamloops, you put him on Seattle, you put him on Winnipeg. Yep. That's a point per game player right there, and he's an 04. Tyler Brennan, goaltender for PG, same thing on a team that just does not know how to play defense. I don't think it's coached to them. It's very interesting up there. Hudson Thornton, another guy on PG, really interesting defenseman, an absolute just offensive dynamo. But once again, is only given time to shine on the power play because that's sometimes the only time that PG can really get it and actually structure themselves in the offensive zone. I honestly think that's a guy that you're going to want to watch out. I think he's going to be like a late second, early third. He's going to shock a lot of people.
And how impressive is David Goyette's season from the OHL Sudbury Wolves? Sudbury Wolves, they missed the playoffs. Very young team, inexperienced team, but he put up a point a game. And he was, he was their first line center and their most dominant offensive forward. So is he going to be going in that first round? I've seen him ranked all the way from inside the 20s, maybe, as high as like 18, but he could go anywhere between 20 to 60. And, part of that is, I think, size. Because he's not the biggest kid, but what he did with the Sudbury Wolves cannot be understated, in my opinion. He was really strong for them, and he was trying to be a leader for that team because they needed one. They didn't really have a great leadership group because they were such a young team.
And I'm just gonna put one more guy from the dub in there. This is a guy, another Kamloops kid, obviously, Matthew Ward. But he was tiny. He was tiny, like 5'8", but has the heart of a wolf. That kid is not afraid of anyone. That kid would punch Jiricek Slavkovsky in the nose. He'd probably go up to that Jack Sparks kid and try and fight him. That's an interesting.
Jack Sparks has got a full foot over him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. That's going to be an interesting prospect. Anyone in Europe like that, Mikko, where you think it's like just playing on a bad team or playing on a really good team has helped their case or hindered their case?
Let me think. Lambert thought that way, but because he moved so much. But somebody who I had in mind, when you were talking earlier, I'm actually gonna surprise with a CHL player. Isaiah George.
Yes.
Because he started as a 7th, 8th defenseman, and now at the end of the year he was one of their top defensemen, and that's something that can't be overlooked, especially when you're playing in the London Knights.
Because I'm sorry, Jared. He was one of the guys at the combine, right? He was another combine freak, wasn't he? Isaiah George?
I think so, yeah.
Or was that? Because it was him, Maverick Lamoureux, and I think Noah Warren was up there too. Yeah. Philip Machar was also cracked at the combine with his bench press, I think.
Noah Warren's going to go in the first round. It would be my hot take.
After we were right down there, really high at 98, we were really sought after on him.
And he's someone that I actually I was tasked to watch a little bit for Gatineau, and there's a lot to like, but then there's also a lot of improving. I think that's needed to be had. Really fairly smooth skater for 6'5" and over 200 pounds, that's for sure. But just a guy who's a right shot defenseman at 6'5" and who is a smooth skater, I just see some team's there's going to be a team late in the first round that's going to say we'll take that pick.
No, there's so many guys. That's the thing with this draft. There's just so many characters. Like, you know what? There's some people that are now going, it's like, oh, the 2022 draft isn't that good. You're psycho. It's a great draft.
I think the the top end is not that good. If we are still already waiting for the top of the 23, but
this one isn't as top heavy as how we put it. It's there's no
very wide.
There's no takeaways. Like it's if you know what, at least next year it's going to take a miracle for Bedard to get knocked off that first spot. But no,
is it though?
Yeah.
Is it though? I mean, Mishkov is pretty damn good. I'll say that.
I'm calling it a miracle. It's going to take a miracle. That's personally me.
I think
that Mishkov contract is going to scare people away. I think it'll scare people away from a first. If you take a first and you have Bedard there, what Bedard's going to be able to do in 5 years rather than wait for Mishkov, I think it's going to be Bedard.
Yeah.
Barring a Lambert incident here, I think like Mishkov should still go second overall though.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying anything like that. I just mean first. Yeah.
No, I know. But I think Mishkov is the second best player, and I think he is close to Bedard. But if a team gets scared away from that contract, don't let it be another Kaprizov situation. We saw that. Now Kaprizov was a different, he was deeper in the draft.
Yeah, that wasn't as like, we know this guy's a top 5 pick. It was like, okay, this guy's good, but his interest isn't there. So it's like probably a guy who would have gone like normally like second or late first, but what happens.
It seems like number 1 and 2 for next year's draft, 2023, is already cemented as Bedard and Mishkov's draft. I would say Fantilli would be number 3, but Jaeger is right there. I think he's going to challenge Fantilli. I'm really interested to see how Fantilli does in the NCAA.
I'm really interested to see how Dvorsky plays in the Allspin scan.
That's the one I'm looking for.
I forgot about him. I was called when Elite Prospects made like their ranking thing where you can make your own rankings on there. I made a public one early on, and I had Dvorsky 3rd, and one of my classmates literally called me insane. He's like, "Yeah, aren't you the guy who puts Dvorsky over Fantilli?" I'm like, "Man, I like Dvorsky." like just calm down. Like, am I not allowed? Like, please. And it's just like, you just like them because you like the Hlinka. Well, yeah, you're right. I've watched so much of Dvorsky. I love the guy to bits. We are straying into the 23s though. That's going to be a hell of a draft. And you know what? I'm really excited. I almost want to say I think we've covered a lot today with these 2022s. I'd probably say we're going to wrap it up there. But next year, for all those listening, we are going to be trying to do these a lot more consistently next year. One of the big things that was barring us, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was really busy with school. A lot of us were just busy with life. It's not a full-time job scouting. We have other stuff that we got to do. But yeah, I'm really hoping that we can turn it into like a bi-weekly, monthly thing next year for the 2023 draft, getting our updates, getting more people on, obviously getting some more variation, more people in here as well. I'm not going to bar to 3 or 4 people like we were doing it like early on. If 6 or 7 people want to come in, by all means, we're gonna have fun. It's gonna be like a little party in here sometimes. But other than that, once again, I remind you to go pick up our draft guide or our yearbook. It's on Amazon. We also got the physical copies available now. Those are also it's always been more fun to read it on physically. You get to keep it. It's cool. Like I was never a fan of digital books anyways. It strains your eyes.
This isn't the draft guide. That's the preview one. I'm just showing. I like it when it's handheld over digital copies.
Yes. And you know what? If you want to give it as a gift to someone who's an absolute draft nut like one of us, the physical thing is just so much more fun. And you get to wrap it up and you get to give it to someone. It's like, oh my God, look, it's an actual gift rather than here's a link. Oh yeah. Thank you. I remember getting my Minecraft account for Christmas when I was like 13 and I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
It's as cool, but yay.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, that was the DraftPro podcast. We'll see you guys in the next year. I don't know when the next one will be. Maybe when the Hlinka starts, kind of like we did the first one last year.
We should do one after the draft.
Ooh, okay. That's also fair. Keep me on our toes. All right, guys. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in.